The Interstellar Alliance Academy floated above a quiet blue planet. It was a place where young cadets from dozens of alien species came to train together. Inside its shining halls, every language of the galaxy could be heard, and every culture tried to learn how to fight side by side. In one of the classrooms, a group of cadets sat around a long table. They were not in armor but in training uniforms, discussing the day's lesson about the rules of war. "Humans never follow war rules," said Vark, a tall reptilian cadet with sharp yellow eyes. "I have read the battle records. Every time humans fight, they change tactics, ignore orders, and act like war is some kind of game." A few other cadets laughed in agreement. "They do not respect honor," added Thria, a feathered avian cadet. "My people always follow proper war codes. We give warnings before attacks, we never strike from behind, and we fight only soldiers, not cities. Humans? They drop fire on whole planets." Eli, a young human cadet, sat quietly at the far end of the table. His uniform looked plain, and his brown hair was messy as if he had forgotten to comb it. He listened to every word but did not speak. "They say humans are dangerous," said Ryle, a short insectoid cadet with clicking mandibles. "They fight too well for a young species. Perhaps they do not feel fear like the rest of us." The alien cadets nodded, clearly believing every rumor they had heard. Finally, Vark turned his sharp eyes toward Eli. "Human cadet, is it true? Are your people too wild to follow proper rules of war?" Eli looked up slowly. He did not seem angry or insulted. He just looked tired of the same question. Instead of defending himself, he asked softly, "You ever been in a real war?" The room went silent. "What do you mean?" Thria tilted her head, confused. Eli leaned forward on the big table. "Have you ever fought when your home was burning behind you? Have you seen people you love get taken away? Have you fought knowing that if you lose, your family will not live to see another day?" No one answered. Eli's voice stayed calm, but his eyes carried something heavy. "Humans do not fight because we enjoy war. We fight because most wars. We know were not choices. They were survival. When rules break down, when the enemy does not care about honor or warnings, you cannot just stand still and follow a book. You have to do what works. You have to win, or everyone you love is gone." Vark frowned but stayed quiet. Eli looked at each of them. "Maybe you think we are reckless. Maybe you think we ignore rules. But you only think that because you have never been in a war where losing means extinction." The alien cadets shifted, uncomfortably. None of them had seen the kind of wars humans had fought on their homeworld, wars for land, for freedom, for survival itself. Eli leaned back in his chair. "You say humans do not follow rules, maybe. But tell me, when the enemy comes to destroy everything you care about, will you still follow the rules?" No one spoke. The only sound was the quiet hum of the Academy's lights. The instructor, a wise old alien commander, had been listening from the corner. He stepped forward slowly. "Cadets," he said in a firm voice, "war is not as simple as rules on a page. Today you have learned an important lesson. It is easy to judge until you have lived through fire." The class ended, but Eli's question stayed in every cadet's mind. Later, as they left the room, Thria whispered to Vark, "Maybe humans fight differently because they know what real war feels like." Vark said nothing. For the first time, he was not sure if humans were wrong, or if they were the only ones truly ready for what war really was. The academy halls were quiet again, but something had changed. The alien cadets no longer looked at Eli as just another reckless human. They started to wonder what kind of battles his people had survived, and why he asked that one simple question that none of them could answer. The next day, the cadets gathered again in the Academy's training hall. It was a wide room with hollow screens showing maps of ancient battles from across the galaxy. The lesson was about the history of war tactics, but the mood felt different. After Eli's question the day before, many cadets kept glancing at him, curious now instead of mocking. Vark finally asked, "Human cadet, yesterday you said that in real war, rules do not always matter. What did you mean?" Eli looked at him calmly. "I meant what I said. You think humans fight without honor. But our history is full of wars where survival was the only choice." "Tell us one," Threa said, folding her wings. Eli nodded slowly. "Fine. I'll tell you about Earth's old wars. Not because I am proud of them, but because they show why humans fight the way we do." The hollow screen lit up as Eli touched the console. A map of an ancient Earth battlefield appeared. "This was the second great war of our world," Eli began. "Many nations fought. Millions died. We fought not for power, but because one enemy wanted to rule everything, to destroy those they hated. My people joined the fight late, but when we did, we gave everything. Soldiers left home knowing they might never return. We landed on beaches full of fire. We fought in frozen forests, in burning cities. And we won, not by following every rule, but by adapting faster than the enemy." The alien cadets leaned forward. They had read about human wars, but hearing it from someone whose ancestors had lived through them felt different. Eli changed the image again. This time it showed a starship battle. This was after we left our planet and began to explore space. A colony far from Earth was attacked by raiders. They had no fleet, no soldiers, only miners and farmers. But they fought back. They built weapons from tools. They lured the raiders into traps. They refused to give up, even when everything seemed lost. "Did they win?" Ryle asked softly. "Yes," Eli said. "Not because they were stronger, but because they were desperate and clever. That is what humans do. We are not the strongest or the smartest in the galaxy, but when everything is falling apart, we find a way." The instructor, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "Adaptation. That is what humans have always been known for. It is why they are both feared and respected." Eli looked around the room. "You all think war is about honor and perfect rules, but the enemy will not always care about honor. When the enemy burns your cities or takes your families, you will not fight with rules. You will fight to protect them. That is why humans fight differently. We know what it means to lose everything." Vark lowered his head slightly. "Maybe we judged too quickly. We have never faced that kind of war. Our people fight on battlefields far from home. We never had to defend our nests, our eggs, our young." Eli nodded. "Then be glad for that. Because war is not glorious. It is something you hope never to see. But if you do, you fight to win. That is the only way anyone survives." The cadets sat quietly, thinking about what they had just heard. Threa finally said, "Maybe humans are not reckless. Maybe you are simply ready for wars that the rest of us cannot even imagine." Eli did not smile. He just looked at the hollow screen, where the images of old battles slowly faded away. "War is not a story to be proud of," Eli said softly. "But it teaches you what you are willing to do to protect the people you love. That is why humans fight the way we do." The room stayed silent. For the first time, the alien cadets understood that human war stories were not about power or conquest. They were about survival, sacrifice, and impossible choices. Outside the window, the academy floated peacefully above the blue planet. But for the cadets inside, something had changed. They no longer looked at Eli as a reckless fighter. They saw him as someone whose people carried the weight of countless battles, and who understood war better than any of them ever could. A week later, the Academy's routine training suddenly changed. The warning sirens blared across the station, echoing through every hall. "All cadets, report to emergency stations," the intercom voice ordered. Eli and the alien cadets ran toward the briefing room. Their hearts raced as red lights flashed above them. This was no drill. Commander Vera, the instructor, stood at the center of the room with a hollow map of nearby space. Her voice was calm, but serious. A hostile fleet has appeared near the planet below. They are unidentified raiders. Our defense ships are too far away. Until reinforcements arrive, we must hold them off. You cadets are the only ones who can pilot the Academy's training ships. Gasps filled the room. We have never been in real battle, Thria whispered, her feathers trembling. Commander Vera looked at all of them. Today, you will see what war truly is. Follow my orders, trust each other, and you may survive. Moments later, the cadets sat inside small starfighters. The Academy's launch bay opened, revealing the endless black of space. Eli's hands moved quickly over the controls. The others, however, were slower. Vark struggled with the weapon systems, Thria's talons shook on the flight stick, and Ryle was clicking nervously, his mandibles rattling. Stay calm, Eli said over the comms. Follow my lead. Don't think like it's training. Think like it's survival. The raider ships appeared on the scanners, moving fast. They were sleek, dark, and armed with weapons far stronger than the Academy's starfighters. Form up in standard defense formation, Vark shouted, remembering the rules from training. But as soon as they lined up, the raiders opened fire. Bright beams shot through the void. One cadet's ship barely avoided being hit. They're too fast, Thria cried. Break formation, Eli ordered. But the rules, Vark began. Forget the rules, Eli snapped. Move! Use the debris around you for cover! The cadets hesitated, but then they followed Eli. Instead of staying in a neat line, they scattered and darted between floating pieces of broken satellites near the planet's orbit. The raiders fired again, but their shots missed as the cadets zigzagged. Lock on to the leadership, Eli shouted. Take out the one giving orders. That is not in the manual, Ryle exclaimed. Do it, Eli commanded. Thria steadied her aim, her claws finally firm. She fired a burst of plasma. Vark joined her, and then Reel. Their combined fire struck the lead raider ship, sending it spinning out of control. For a moment, the alien cadets felt hope, but more raider ships appeared. The Academy starfighters were outnumbered. Eli's voice came through the comms, calm but firm. Listen to me. Do exactly what I say. I'll draw them toward me. You hit their engines when they chase me. You'll get destroyed. Thria protested. Not if you shoot straight, Eli said with a small smile. Before anyone could argue, Eli's fighter dived toward the raider fleet. He spun and weaved through enemy fire, dodging shots that should have destroyed him. The raiders, thinking he was the weakest, chased after him. Now! Eli shouted. The cadets fired all at once. Plasma bolts hit the engines of two raider ships. They exploded in bright flashes, breaking the enemy's formation. For the first time, the alien cadets were not just following orders. They were fighting like survivors, not students. But the battle was far from over. The raiders regrouped, surrounding the Academy starfighters. Eli, we're trapped, Vark said, panic rising in his voice. Not yet, Eli replied. Follow me to the planet's atmosphere. We'll lose them in the clouds. That is against every protocol, Ryle shouted. Protocols don't save lives, Eli said firmly. Trust me. The cadets hesitated only a second before following Eli. The starfighters plunged toward the blue planet below. Flames licked the sides of their ships as they entered the atmosphere. The raiders followed, but their ships were not built for fast atmospheric flight. Inside thick clouds, the cadets weaved through storms and lightning. The raiders tried to follow, but crashed into the planet's surface one by one. Finally, only a few raider ships remained. Reinforcements from the Alliance fleet arrived, driving the rest away. The cadets landed on the planet, their ships smoking but intact. As they climbed out, their legs shook. Thria looked at Eli, her feathers soaked from rain. You saved us, but you broke every rule we learned. Eli only shrugged. That's the thing about real war. Rules are good until they get you killed. Sometimes you have to do what works. The other cadets stared at him, finally understanding why humans fought the way they did. For the first time, Eli was not just a quiet human cadet. He was a leader, and they had survived because of him. The cadets barely had time to rest before new orders came in. Commander Vera's voice echoed through their comms. The Raider fleet is regrouping in orbit. They are planning to attack the planet directly. You cadets are the only ones close. Enough to stop them before reinforcements arrive. If they strike the cities below, thousands will die. The alien cadets exchanged nervous glances. Their starfighters were damaged, and they were still shaken from the last battle. We can't fight them all, Threa said, her feathers trembling. Eli's voice came through calmly. Then we don't fight them all. We make them fight each other. Vark blinked. What does that mean? Eli looked at the holo map. The Raider ships are not disciplined. They fight for themselves, not as a team. If we can trick them into attacking each other, we have a chance. That is not in the manuals, Ryle muttered. Eli smiled faintly. Good, because the manuals won't save anyone today. Commander Vera studied Eli for a long moment. Cadet Eli, this plan is risky. But you are right. Traditional tactics will fail here. I am giving you command for this mission. Lead them. The alien cadets stared at Eli. A human cadet leading the mission? Eli wasted no time. Listen up. We'll split into 2 groups. Vark, Threa, Ryle, you'll act as bait. Make the Raiders chase you. I'll slip behind them with the rest and disable their lead ships. Once they're confused, we force them into each other's line of fire. Minutes later, their starfighters rose from the planet's surface and shot back into space. The Raider fleet loomed above, dark and menacing. Ready? Eli said. No, Ryle whispered nervously. Good, Eli replied. That means you're thinking, but trust me, we can do this. The cadets launched their plan. Vark and Threa fired at the edges of the Raider formation, drawing attention. As expected, the Raiders quickly chased after them, breaking formation. Now! Eli ordered. Eli and 2 other cadets swooped in from behind. They fired at the engines of the lead Raider ships, not to destroy them, but to disable them. Sparks flew as several Raider ships spun out of control, colliding with their allies. What just happened? Threa shouted in shock. They're panicking, Eli said. Keep firing at the ones chasing you. Don't aim to kill, just force them to move where you want. The cadets fired bursts of plasma, not to destroy, but to herd the Raiders into a tight cluster. But then a massive flagship appeared on the scanner. It was far bigger and stronger than any of the other Raider ships. Eli, that thing can wipe us all out, Vark said, his voice shaking. Eli stared at the flagship on the holoscreen. Then we take it out first. That's impossible, Threa cried. Nothing's impossible, Eli said firmly. Follow my lead. Eli pushed his starfighter toward the flagship. The other cadets followed, hearts pounding. Hit the engines, not the weapons, Eli ordered. They fired everything they had. Plasma bolts struck the flagship's rear thrusters. Sparks erupted, and the massive ship began to drift uncontrollably. The drifting flagship crashed into 2 of its own Raider ships. The collision triggered a chain reaction of explosions that tore through the enemy formation. The cadets stared in disbelief. They're destroying themselves, Ryle whispered. Eli kept his voice steady. Keep up the pressure. Don't give them time to recover. Within minutes, the remaining Raider ships fled into deep space. The cadets had won, not by strength, but by outsmarting the enemy. When they landed back on the planet, the Alliance reinforcements finally arrived. Commander Vera met them in the hangar. She looked at Eli first. You broke every protocol in the Academy manuals. Eli nodded. Yes, ma'am. And you saved thousands of lives, she said with a small smile. Well done, Cadet Eli. The alien cadets turned to Eli. For the first time, there was no doubt in their eyes. He was no longer just a quiet human cadet. He was their leader. Threa stepped forward. We always thought humans were reckless. But today, you showed us that breaking the rules can be the only way to win. Eli shook his head. War isn't about winning. It's about surviving so others can live. If rules get in the way of that, you find another way. The alien cadets nodded slowly. They finally understood why humans fought differently, and why that difference had saved them all. The battle was over. The sky above the planet was clear again, and the raider fleet was gone. The cadets stood in the hangar, exhausted, their starfighters scorched and dented. Alliance reinforcements had finally arrived, but the real fight had already ended. The young cadets, who only days ago had been in a classroom, were now survivors of a real war. Commander Vera faced the group. "You all fought with courage," she said. "But there is one cadet who showed what leadership truly means." Her eyes turned to Eli. "Cadet Eli, you disobeyed the manuals. You broke protocol. And because of that, everyone here is alive. You saved this planet." The alien cadets looked at Eli with new respect. Vark stepped forward first. "Human cadet? No, human leader. I was wrong about your people. I thought you ignored rules because you were arrogant. But you knew something we didn't. Rules mean nothing if you lose everything." Thria nodded, her feathers ruffling slightly. "You asked us, have you ever been in a real war? Now I know the answer. We hadn't. Not until today." Ryle clicked his mandibles softly. "You fought like someone who has seen war before. But this was your first battle too. How?" Eli looked at them, his expression calm but serious. "Because I learned from the ones who came before me. Humans remember every war we fought, every mistake we made. We adapt because we have to. That's why we survive." The cadet stood silently, taking in his words. Commander Vera spoke again. "This mission will be recorded as an example of leadership under fire. Cadet Eli, you will be honored by the Alliance Council. But more important than awards, you saved lives, and that is what matters." Eli nodded, though he did not smile. "War isn't something to celebrate. We won today, but we were lucky. Next time, we may not be." Later, as the sun set over the planet, the cadets sat together outside the academy, looking at the horizon. The mood was quiet, thoughtful. Thria broke the silence. "When we first met, I thought humans were dangerous. Now I understand why you fight the way you do. It's not chaos. It's survival." Eli glanced at her. "And now you've seen what a real war feels like. It's not glorious. It's fear, loss, and choices no one wants to make." Vark looked at the ground. "I used to think honor was following every rule, even in war. But maybe true honor is saving lives, no matter how you do it." Ryle gave a small clicking laugh. "If the manuals had your tactics, they'd be 3 times as long." Eli finally smiled faintly. "Manuals are useful, but they can't teach you everything. War is never clean. The best soldiers aren't the ones who follow orders blindly. They're the ones who know when to break them for the right reasons." The cadets sat together in silence again, each lost in thought. They had come to the academy to learn about war, but instead, they had lived it. The next morning, the academy held a small ceremony. Commander Vera presented Eli with a medal of courage. "Cadet Eli," she said loudly for all to hear, "you asked a question that every soldier must answer someday. Have you ever been in a real war? You showed us all what that means." The alien cadets stood proudly beside him. They were no longer just classmates. They were comrades who had survived together. As the ceremony ended, Eli looked at the stars above. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and wars yet to come. But now, at least, these cadets knew something they hadn't before. That war wasn't about glory or rules or honor. It was about protecting what mattered, no matter the cost. For the first time since joining the academy, Eli felt like he belonged. Not because he had followed the rules, but because he had shown why sometimes humans had to break them. And as the alien cadets stood beside him, they finally understood why humanity's way of fighting, wild, unpredictable, and stubborn, was exactly what the galaxy needed. Because in a real war, survival mattered more than anything else, and humanity knew how to survive. Ask ChatGPT.